The whistle is in the officer's mouth before you've finished praying. You don't really hear it. After the shelling, you barely hear anything. You feel it, a thin shriek cutting through the roar, and the man beside you is already climbing the ladder. So you climb too. Up over the sandbags, out of the only safe ground for miles, into the open, toward the wire, toward the guns. And here's the strange part. This is the first time in 9 days you've actually stood up straight in daylight. To understand why, we have to go back to the moment you opened your eyes this morning in the cold and the mud, hours before the whistle. Welcome to one day in the life of a British soldier on the Western Front. It's still dark when they wake you, and you were never really asleep. You're lying in a scraped-out hole in the side of a trench on the Western Front in the worst winter you've ever known. Nobody knows your real name out here. To the newspapers back home, to the officers, to history, you're just Tommy. Tommy Atkins. It was the made-up name printed on a sample army form a century before you were born, and somehow it stuck to every British soldier who ever pulled on the uniform. Maybe you volunteered. In 1914 and 1915, 2.5 million men walked into recruiting offices and signed up before they could be made to. Whole streets joined together. Friends, brothers, the lads from the same factory, promised they could fight side by side in what they called PALS battalions. Or maybe it's later now, and the volunteers weren't enough, and the letter came whether you wanted it or not. Either way, the same trench is waiting for all of you. And the first thing it asks of you is this. An hour before sunrise, the word comes down the line. Stand to. Every man climbs onto the fire step, rifle loaded, bayonet fixed, and stares out into the murk over the parapet. You do this because dawn is when men die. The half-light is when an attack comes, when the enemy can see just enough to cross and you can't see quite enough to stop them. So the whole line stands and waits and watches the dark turn gray. And when nothing comes, most mornings nothing comes, you get the best thing the army will give you all day. A tot of rum. A quarter of a gill, poured under an officer's eye into the cap of an artillery shell, because no one trusts a man near the rum jar without supervision. It's thick and dark and it burns, and for about 10 minutes it makes the cold bearable. Then breakfast, if the ration party got through in the night. Tea. Bread, one 3-pound loaf shared between you and several other men. Tin stew, often eaten cold because smoke in daylight tells a sniper exactly where you are. And the biscuits, war biscuits, so hard you can break a tooth, baked to survive a journey, not to be enjoyed. You clean your rifle. A jammed rifle is a dead man, so this you do properly, every single day. And here's the first thing the films never show you. This isn't one ditch. The trench you're standing in is the front edge of a vast system that stretches back for miles. A front line, then a support line behind it, then a reserve line behind that, all stitched together by twisting communication trenches. And not one stretch of it runs straight. Every few yards it kinks and zigzags, on purpose, so that no shell blast and no raider who gets in can fire down the whole length of it. You are standing in a machine, and the machine was designed to keep you alive a little longer than the man who dug it. Now the sun is up, and you'd expect the fighting to start. It doesn't. This is the second thing nobody tells you. Most of the day, in most of the trench, almost nothing happens. The great battles of this war are days or weeks apart. In between is this: waiting. You keep your head down, lift it above the sandbags in daylight, and a sniper half a mile away will take it off before you hear the shot. So in the daytime, you rest, you mend, you carry, and you wait for the dark, because out here, the real work happens at night. But you are not alone in this trench, and the things sharing it with you are trying to kill you slowly. There's the water. Stand in it long enough and your feet swell, go numb, then rot. trench foot. And if you ignore it, the surgeons take the foot. There are the lice, breeding in every seam of your uniform, itching without end, carrying a fever that can lay you out for weeks. There are the rats, thousands of them, fat as cats, fed on the food you drop and the dead you can't bury, running across your face while you sleep. And under all of it, the smell. Wet earth, smoke, latrines, and the sweetish reek of things that used to be men. Now, the part that should comfort you, and the part the myths get wrong. You won't be here forever. The Army rotates you. A few days in the front line, then back to the support trench, then the reserve, then a precious stretch at rest behind the lines, in a barn or a billet, where you can take your boots off and sleep without one eye open. Most soldiers spend only a fraction of their war, roughly 1 day in 7, actually in the firing line. The rest is digging, marching, carrying, and the endless, grinding boredom in between. And that life expectancy you've heard about? The famous line that a soldier in the trenches lasted 6 weeks? It's a myth. It was never true for the ordinary infantryman. The grim arithmetic is real, but it's not that. Of all the British men who served in this war, very roughly 1 in 8 did not come home, which means the odds, even here, even now, are that you do. Most of these men survive. They just have to survive a great many days like this one. But first, you have to get through the night. Because when the light finally goes and the second stand to passes, the trench wakes up. You might draw sentry duty, 2 hours staring into no man's land, no more, because a man left longer starts to see things that aren't there, and a sentry who falls asleep can be shot for it. You might be sent out with a working party, up and over into the dark, to mend the barbed wire your own guns keep blowing apart. Out there, somewhere between you and the enemy, are listening posts. Men lying flat in shell holes in the freezing black, holding their breath, trying to hear the enemy doing the exact same thing back. That is the real day. Hours of cold and tedium, stitched together by minutes when anything can happen. But not this day. Word came down in the night, the way it always does. At dawn, you attack. It starts with your own guns. For days now, the artillery behind you has been firing over your heads. Thousands of shells, a noise so total it stops being sound and becomes weather. The plan, the promise, is that all that metal will cut the enemy's wire and bury the men in front of you, so that when you walk across, there's nothing left to walk into. That's the promise. It is not always kept. More than once on this front, the guns have lifted, the men have climbed out, and found the wire still standing, and the enemy very much alive, climbing up from deep dugouts the shells never reached. You don't know which kind of morning this is. Nobody does, until it's too late to matter. In the last hour, they pack you into the front trench, shoulder to shoulder. The rum comes round again, a bigger measure than usual, and you understand exactly why. Bayonets are fixed. You're carrying 60 pounds of kit, ammunition, tools, rations, sandbags, because if you take that trench, you have to be able to hold it. The guns stop. The silence is worse than the noise. The officer lifts his whistle, and then it blows, and the man beside you goes up the ladder, and you follow him, because the only thing more terrifying than going over is being the one who didn't. Here is the last thing the films get wrong. You are not charging. You can't. Not under this much weight, across ground churned to soup and cratered like the moon. You walk. A long, heavy, deliberate walk into the open, in a thin line of men, toward whatever the shelling did or didn't do to the guns ahead. What happens in the next few minutes is not really up to you. It's up to the wire and the machine guns and 1,000 things decided before you ever woke up. Some men beside you fall and don't get up. Some go to ground in shell holes and wait. And some, by speed, by luck, by the simple accident of where the bullets aren't, reach the other side. Today, somehow, you're one of them. You make it into the enemy line or back to your own. The ground gained is measured in yards, and the cost of it won't be counted until the names are read out. That's the truth of this war that the maps never show. Enormous courage spent for a few yards of mud. By evening, you're back in a trench. Maybe a new one, maybe the same one. You're soaked, deafened, shaking, and alive. You look down the line and you read it by the gaps. The faces that were there this morning and aren't now. And then you do the strangest thing of all. You take out a pencil and a scrap of paper and you write home. You tell them the food is fine and the weather is dreadful and you're keeping your spirits up. You don't tell them about the morning, partly because the censor would cut it, mostly because there are no words you'd want your mother to read. Tonight, the rats come back, and the cold comes back, and somewhere down the line, a man is already whispering, "Stand to," for a dawn that's only hours away. You survived a day on the Western Front. Most people watching never could. But could you survive a different kind of day? 4,000 years earlier, under a desert sun instead of a freezing sky, hauling a block of stone the weight of an elephant toward a tomb built for a man who calls himself a god. That's next time. If you made it to the end, subscribe. There's a new day and a new life every week. I'll see you in the next one.